Alright guys, I didn't show the install because it's just too tight in here to put a camera and try to do everything. So tight I can't even get a full view without turning it sideways, so we're not going to do that. There's a finished product. Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm working on a cabinet for the cabin. I'm replacing a cheap particle board cabinet that we used in the bathroom for extra toilet paper and towels and that kind of stuff. I'm making it out of cherry. If you've watched the cabin tour video, part of the bathroom has the aromatic cedar in it, so it's the red and white look. So I'm going to use wild black cherry, thinking that'll match fairly close. I don't have any of the, was it Eastern aromatic cedar? I don't have any of that to make a cabinet out of. So I thought cherry would be the next good choice. I've got everything pre-cut here. The cabinet is going to be 44 inches high, about 24 inches wide, and 15.5 inches deep or so. I don't remember the exact at this point. I started with one sheet of 3/4 inch grade A cherry plywood, and then some lumber, cherry lumber that I milled with the chainsaw mill for the face frame. So we have our solid cherry face frame, and then our plywood. I've got shelves. It's going to have adjustable shelves in it. That's the next thing I'm going to do is drill the shelf holes, so I can put wherever, you know, adjust heights type of thing. The only catch is the top of the cabinet, which you won't see unless you get in and look up, is going to be made of birch instead of cherry. Simply because I don't have enough. The standard for a cabinet is to use birch inside. So most cabinets, unless it's got an exposed end, is going to have birch all the way around. Both sides, the back, the top, and the bottom. And the face frame is just going to be your word of choice. So if I was making a hickory cabinet, I would have a hickory face frame, a hickory door, and everything else would be birch, unless it's an exposed end that you would see walking by it, and then that would be hickory. So birch is a pretty standard plywood. It's also about half the price for a 3/4 inch piece of birch plywood that it is for cherry. So the fact that we're using birch in there, the only odd thing is that most of it's going to be out of cherry. Like I said, that's because I didn't have enough cherry because I cut one board wrong. I cut my shelves before I cut all my plates, the top and bottom plate for the cabinet, which left me short. So that's why I don't have enough. Anyway, we're going to get started. Now all I'm going to do is put some painter's tape down, and this just helps from chipping. I'm just going to basically split that. I'm going to run it down to this end, and I'm going to split that one. All right. And I mean, the tools I have aren't, there are definitely shops with more high-end tools and more tools than I have, but you can do this with a minimal number of tools. It just requires a lot of blade changing. You know, this is a rip cut blade because we're going the long way, we're ripping, so we want a rip cut blade, and it's, I mean, it's not a super expensive blade, but relative to what would come on the saw or a regular plywood blade, it is more expensive. Good blades don't damage the plywood as bad, and if we're not talking sheeting a roof, we're talking fine cabinetry or furniture, we don't want to chip the wood any more than the plywood any more than absolutely like necessary. I mean, none of it's necessary, but you know what I mean. So I actually have a saw set up with a rip blade. I have one set up with a cross-cut blade, and they're just cheap saws. The saw isn't the important part. The blade's the important part. So if you're going to go do this, you don't need 3 expensive saws. You can use 3 cheap. I think these are Tool Shop. Yeah, Tool Shop saws. They're not expensive. And this is just a regular, ripping regular plywood blade. So that setup isn't expensive at all. When I started doing this stuff, I convinced my wife that I could do it with a minimal number of tools and at a minimal cost, and I could. It just took a lot longer because, well, I'd be changing blades because I'm going to do a rip cut, then I'm going to do cross cuts, and you're constantly changing blades and do that kind of stuff, and that's not fun either. Changing blades isn't the fun part of making cabinets. I probably shouldn't be talking while I'm doing this because I'm moving around so much. You're not going to want to watch this part. So I've got some counterbalance weight on there. This is just from a track from an old garage door. And the nice thing is it's straight. So I will clamp that on, and that'll give me this. So you could do this even without a table saw. If I had a big industrial table saw, a really nice table saw, I'd do it on a table saw. But I don't. I have a little portable one and a big sheet of plywood on there. You're trying to go through and the plywood wiggles back and forth and you don't get a straight cut. Fine for sheeting a house, not so much for fine furniture. Okay, so I've got sawhorses, adjustable sawhorses under there. When you do that, you just want to make sure that your cut line is clear. So if you look under there, you can see very well, but I've made sure that there's nothing in my cut line. Put your ears on. We'll set this aside until we're ready for it. Be careful with his edges. All right, let's get started on milling some of this up. Start with this one. go with that. That side will go to the fence. Now we just need to set up the table saw. Okay, put your ears on. So there's a cherry shelf. There's a cherry shelf. And there's the birch shelf.